Hello, friends and members of the Creation Research Society. Dr. Brown here. Here's our next installment of a member spotlight. I have actually two members to introduce to you today. We have Chuck and June Sheldon. Now, I have just recently met them. I've chatted with them a couple times over the phone, and it's been a pleasure to get to know them, and I'm excited to introduce them to the rest of you all today. So, Chuck and June, it's great to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in creation science?
Sure. I just became a Christian about the time I started graduate school, and I was challenged by a youth pastor who said evolution is a bunch of bunk. But he gave me all his books on the topic because he was leaving the country to go to Chile to be a missionary. So I got a bootstrap, and I had always been taught to seek the truth. So even though it seemed like he was very ignorant and couldn't possibly know what he was talking about, I thought, well, I should pursue the truth wherever it leads. And I was very afraid that it would shake my new faith. I was only a Christian about a year, and I was afraid there would be gobs of evolution support, and I wouldn't know what to do with that. But God really blessed me by showing me the exact opposite. I was stunned that there was actually effectively no support for evolution in science itself. And I could tell the difference between science and what is popular among scientists. I
Sure.
knew enough.
Oh,
I knew. Go ahead.
So, so, so you're saying you were a new Christian and still just accepted the standard evolutionary story,
Yeah.
and then somebody was like, "Well, have you ever actually looked at that?" And and you thought it was a settled story
Hmm.
until you looked into it. That's
Yep.
fantastic. Now, you said graduate school. What was your scientific? Was this in sciences?
Yes.
Okay.
June and I met in medical school. I mean, as pre-meds in college,
Okay.
undergrads, and we worked on a research grant together, NSF grant, and then at the summer we graduated, and then the next year we both continued in school. I was still planning to pursue a medical degree, and uh, but this so I had more time on my hands as a graduate student, and I was able to spend months with lots of time every day, living alone, researching this stuff.
Hmm.
So I found as much information as I could.
So, June, sounds like you met in pre-med. What was your personal journey? And you won't be able to give us all the details, but specifically that step of what made you interested in creation science from a biblical perspective.
Well, I think, unlike Chuck, I was about 4 years old, and my dad was an atheist, my mother agnostic, but my mother did not want to make negative vibes. So I didn't know about God. But I remember realizing that there was such a thing as good and evil. And I would go outside and I would talk to the clouds, and I, I said, I just understood that he was the creator of everything. And I just said, Mr. Nobody, you know, and I would talk to God. And I knew that there was evil in that sometimes my dad would have a terrible temper. And I thought, you know what? This is a spiritual thing.
Hmm.
And I saw this again taking a class. I think it was radiation safety. And I asked the professor, I said, um, could the clocks have been reset by cosmic radiation? Or how do you know that there's 100% um, parent at the beginning and zero daughter at the beginning? And he went into a total rage. He starts yelling at me. All the students were shocked. They just turned around and looked at me, and I got their approval. So I thought, there's an evil force behind all this, and there's a much stronger benevolent force as well. So I came kind of to God and creation um, kind of through emotions,
Hmm.
but having a, a you know a BA in molecular biology and a MA in biology, and teaching 5 different classes throughout the years, microbiology, every biology class you can think of, including ecology, organic, inorganic chemistry, algebra at the college level. For decades, I became quite familiar with the concept of evolution and creation, and I had to address the evolution, but I addressed it to the students, giving them a sense of doubt. Oh, do you really believe this? So,
So let me jump in then and say, like, from a member's perspective, for other members who were interested in the field of education, June, you sound specifically um, experienced
oh yeah,
in teaching in a secular environment, yet while holding your personal beliefs about creation, and you're still teaching the content, but from a critical perspective.
exactly. Well, I had to,
Yeah.
in the university, uh, teach the content, but I think it was actually more effective than just saying, God created, the universe, and in in 6 days, and looking at the genealogy, we've been around for about 6,000 years since Adam. Everybody would just go, "What?" But if you
Sure.
question their philosophy, their religion, they'll come through with the idea it takes a lot more faith to believe in evolution than it does creation, because starting with natural laws and chemicals and time, uh, who created the natural laws, chemicals, and time? So
Absolutely.
they just really learned to question um, the main thrust of every biology class they took, that evolution is absolutely true, which it's
Well,
not.
and I think you raise a very important point that, every person has a journey in their faith, and it's not like they're going to just go from believing they came from goo to believing in a benevolent God who created them um, instantly all the time. And there's this process of first where they start to maybe doubt what they've been taught in the conventional evolutionary story. So, to both of you, the Sheldons, when did you first learn about CRS, and what made you join?
Well, it was from the start because we joined about 50 years ago as lifetime
Okay.
members. As soon as I saw, I was absolutely electrified with the idea, the the fantastic idea that my faith and my science were completely compatible.
Amen.
That was dynamite for me. And
Yeah.
so, I wanted to be very involved, and I was aware of CRS. So CRS seemed to me the organization most dedicated to providing a firm scientific foundation for creation science. So,
Well, we like to say research is our middle name, and that's our goal, is to be that scientific voice for biblical creationists. Now, as we wrap this up, thank you both for your time. Can you share one of your favorite Bible verses, creation related or otherwise?
I don't have,
Well,
otherwise, well, go
well,
ahead. You,
I have, it's not just one verse, but it's Job chapter 40 and 41,
Okay.
talk about Behemoth and Leviathan. And uh, the Bible was changed over time to talk about Behemoth as a hippopotamus, but a hippopotamus does not have a tail like a cedar. So it became very obvious to me that um, the Bible uh, authors, God through them, was describing a dragon or a dinosaur. And you see dragons throughout history
Sure.
in carvings, stone carvings everywhere. So the Bible is authenticated. Uh, the creation account is authenticated most strongly in those two chapters, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a great chapter to bring up. That and definitely go read that chapter again, Job chapter 40, to see the mightiness of God. And Chuck, do you have any verse that
Yeah.
speaks to you?
Yeah, and actually I guess this does relate in a way because I remember I had a dispute with my mom when I was about 19 starting college, and she seemed to have the view that God created people, and I thought, she was a very intellectual person, and I thought, she's pretty dumb. But you know what the argument I used? I said, Mom, it's so obvious that evolution happened because I was so thoroughly brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
And obvious is not an argument at all.
Mm,
In fact, that leads me to, I think, one of my favorite Bible verses. It's about how non intuitive God and life are sometimes. It's 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 16 to 18. They're very brief, but it says, Rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and in everything, give thanks in everything, for this is the will of God. So these things are God's will, and they're non-intuitive. How can you pray without ceasing?
mm,
Impossible. But God says to do it. How can you rejoice? Especially like James says, with trials, suffering. Not very non-intuitive. And to be thankful in everything, well, that's ridiculous. Super humanly speaking.
sure.
So, but this verse or this passage reveals to me how unacquainted I am intuitively with God. And that it's very important for me to look at scripture to guide my understanding of God and the world, because it is not, a lot of these things are just not obvious to people.
Absolutely. Now, you two emulate what we strive for as a society, to have both a strong view of science, to love science, and also love the Bible and pursue the Bible. So thank you for giving us your time to share. Last word. What's your dreams, vision, goal for the creation movement at large? Where should we be headed? Go.
Well, I think that the movement should focus on young people that like 60 or 70% lose their faith the minute they take the first biology class in college. And we would like to basically reach them
Mm,
because having had experience with thousands of college students, hundreds of high school and middle school students, and our three daughters, um, uh, they said it best. We kind of fell away in our college years at first, but we never, ever, ever doubted that God created the universe and um, He created man. And I think that because uh, our kids are so indoctrinated from toddlerhood, we need to reverse that.
yeah. No, that's focusing on that youth, those formative years, so important. Thanks for bringing that up. Anything to add to that, Chuck?
Well, I think we face a big challenge in the church. About 30 years ago, June organized a class where she invited guest speakers, PhDs and so forth, to this class at the church we have been attending, and it went great. They even videotaped it. It was very successful. But 5 years ago, June and I proposed teaching a course on origins at the church, and they refused us. I think they considered it too controversial.
Hmm.
But in effect, what they were doing is censoring any member's ability to hear the pros and cons on the topic and make an informed decision. They were effectively netting nobody. It's not that they wanted everybody to go to the class, it's that they wouldn't let anybody go to such a class. So I think that's very sad, and that does emphasize the importance of reaching people while they're young before they're, set in their ways, sort of.
Well, you guys just brought up two huge issues. Certainly things that we need to work towards, both as a church and as a creation movement. So thank you so much for your involvement in CRS, but in the creation movement at large. And thank you for giving us your time today. For those out there, if you love God and love the Bible, but you also love science, and you can do both. True Science Affirms the Bible. So join the Creation Research Society. We would love to have you part of it.